This program is brought to you by the following sponsors.
I guess I can fake and do this. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just fake this. What is going on, guys? Jay Shy here with another video, and I figure I'd do another video from this perspective because a lot of you guys seem to like it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my first-person dungeon crawlers that I think are good starters to start out with. So, starting from, I guess, 5 going down to 1 would be the best way to do this. A lot of you guys ask me, hey, you know, what's pretty good first-person dungeon crawlers to start off with that I would say are for a person that has never played a dungeon crawler or never dived into that kind of genre before, and they're looking into it, or which ones they should start out with. And I came up with 5 that I think are pretty good starters. But one of them is not a first-person dungeon crawler, but it is still a dungeon crawler. It's a roguelike dungeon crawler, and it is this game right here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's Awakened Fate Ultimatum. Awakened Fate Ultimatum is a roguelike dungeon crawler. I put this at number 5 because when I did play it, I did enjoy what I played. And I think it's a pretty good entry into roguelike dungeon crawlers. If you don't know what a roguelike dungeon crawler is they're basically, so you dungeon crawl through dungeons and you collect gear and you go deeper and deeper within these dungeons, but if you should happen to die, you lose all that gear and you start all the way over from the beginning, from like level 1. But the game does give you a chance to run through the dungeon again to get your gear back. But the reason why I picked this game in particular is because, it's kind of like Shiren the Wanderer. If you guys have never seen that game, look that game up. That game is also really good. That's also a good place starter. But I picked this one instead because this game has a mechanic where you have to switch between the light and the dark version of yourself to attack certain creatures in the dungeons. So if you're fighting a light creature, you'll have to switch to a dark side of yourself to deal extra damage. I mean, you can attack them with the light damage, but it doesn't do that well. And I think this kind of creates some cool mechanics in its game that I think a lot of you guys might enjoy. If you haven't tried this, go ahead and try it. I think this game is actually pretty pricey now. I think because it's very it's uncommon. I'm not gonna say it's rare because I don't think it's rare. It's just uncommon. No one cares about it right now. But if you want to get into a roguelike dungeon crawler, start with this. The next game I want to talk about is a game that I don't have a physical copy of it anymore, mostly because I let a friend hold it years ago and he just never returned it to me. But it's Wizardry 8. That is yet another good first-person dungeon crawler. That is a first-person dungeon crawler that I would recommend people can start with. But the reason why it's at number 4, and it's one of my favorites, it's basically the first-person dungeon crawler I've ever played. You guys can look it up. I actually did a video on it a couple of months ago. You guys can look that up. But it's a traditional first-person dungeon crawler. You basically have to create your own party. You have to build it balanced to however you want it. And the game just kind of lets you go wherever you want to go. I mean, it's pretty much a world you can traverse, but the game is very punishing. And that's one of the reasons why I put this game at number 4 is because it has permadeath. So if a character in your party dies, they're pretty much dead for good. So you have to keep them well alive and all that stuff. In the game, you can rest and build campfires and stuff. But if you rest in a very dangerous area, you could get attacked by monsters while you're sleeping. And the game it teaches you good fundamentals of, I would say, dungeon crawling games. And it's a classic. That game came out in, I think, 2001, 2002, but it still holds up. You guys can go ahead and check out my video that I did on that so you guys can look at the gameplay. It's on Steam. You can buy that game on Steam. You can buy it physically, but I think it's like $34 for a box. It's pretty up there for an old first-person dungeon crawler. Next game is one of my personal favorites. It's on the Vita, which is Stranger of Sword City. You guys saw me do a video on this as well. Stranger in Sword City is another game. It's number 3 on the list. I really, really love this game. Mostly because it's very reminiscent of Wizardry 8. If you have a PlayStation Vita or a Vita TV, which I love to play my video games on, I love to play it on the Vita TV, is Wizardry 8. I mean, not Wizardry 8, Stranger in Sword City. Whatever fundamentals you've built up playing any type of first-person dungeon crawler, this game will basically reinforce all of that. Building a good party. It also has this mechanic where if you give your characters a certain job, because you have to build your party and give them jobs, and the ages matter, but you can also job change in between the game wherever you want. And changing their jobs gives them more options, but it drops their levels low, so you have to rebuild them all over again. But it's so strategic, and I love this game. The story is a little... It's very fantasy based, but it's really, really good. And I do recommend this game for starting out. If you feel like you want a little bit more of a challenge from the other 2 games I'm going to show you, where I'm working my way from 5, which is pretty much, hard, and working my way to easy and, what's easier to get into. So Stranger of Sword City is number 3. Number 2 is Etrian Odyssey IV on the 3DS. That is another good first-person dungeon crawler. The story is not great, I can admit that, but I do like the game. The story isn't great, but the fundamentals of creating a party is all there from like other first-person dungeon crawlers. But the game is a little bit easier in terms of like enemies and stuff like that. Bosses can become tiresome, but leveling up your characters, that's something you should probably look into. But the game is actually very good. It teaches you to, when you traverse through a dungeon, you actually have to manually draw in the map. So you have to take your stylus on your 3DS and actually sketch in the map and all that stuff. And it's pretty cool, because it kind of reminds me of back in the day when I would play like Metroid on the NES, and we actually had to draw the map, on a sheet of paper. So, but here it's very intuitive, very easy. But it's a really cool game. It also has job changing. You can reset your characters like stats if you don't like it. But building a good party is very paramount in this game. So if you guys want to start off with this, I recommend this. Then 5. I think 5 is maybe a little bit harder than this one, in my opinion. I'm really into Etrian Odyssey games, so I would say that probably this one is the easier one to go into. And last but not least, I like this game. Everybody else hated this game, but I think it's fine. I think it does enough to differentiate itself from other games, and it is Mind Zero. A lot of people say that this is a Persona clone. It has some resemblances of that, but it is its own kind of game. It's a first-person dungeon crawler that is very basic. It's very upfront. It's nothing like too, I guess, advanced. Unlike Stranger of Sword City, like if you don't build a good party, you're gonna get demolished in that game. But in this game, the party's kind of set for you. You basically just have to use the right spells, the right coordinations and stuff like that, and you have to manually know when to switch on and switch off your personas, or like their minds or whatever. But this game does that, and the story is okay. It's like a conspiracy kind of thing. It's not bad. But I do recommend Mind Zero as like an introductory to first-person dungeon crawlers. I did have others that I think is a pretty good way to start in dungeon crawlers. Another one which is I think it looks cool, but it's not. It has like this weird Bravely Default mechanic to it. It's called Ray Gigant. It's on the PlayStation Vita as well. That one is okay if you guys want to go ahead and try that. I also have that, but I didn't make it a part of my list. Think of these last as honorable mentions. Ray Gigant is okay. Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey is probably good. I didn't put it on this list mainly because I feel like the game is very, very difficult. And I don't think it's a good introductory to a first-person dungeon crawler at all. If you're looking for something to just, you know, frustrate you starting out fresh out the gate in first-person dungeon crawlers, Strange Journey will definitely be that game. I mean, playing it and getting frustrated and keep going, and you slowly climbing that ladder will definitely reinforce some strong fundamentals of dungeon crawling RPGs. But I didn't add it to this list because I just think it's just very difficult for the starting fan base of people who are trying to get into first-person dungeon crawlers or dungeon crawlers in general. Another dungeon crawler that's pretty good that I recommend is Shiren the Wanderer, which I mentioned earlier. And Shiren the Wanderer is not a first-person dungeon crawler, but it's still a dungeon crawler. It's a roguelike, but it's really fun. But it does get quite hard later on. The game teaches you how to combat certain things throughout the game, but once you get to the closer to the end of the game, you should really watch out, because the game does get really hard to the point where you have to use all the fundamentals that you learned during the game. But anyway, that is pretty much it. You guys had asked me to do a video on first-person dungeon crawlers, and this is it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and you guys get out and try and find whichever game is more appealing to you. Like I said before, I recommend Mine Zero, just starting off, just to get your feet wet. You don't have to finish the game. Just get your feet wet, play around with it. It's probably very cheap on PSN right now. Go ahead if you have a Vita or a Vita TV. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Peace, guys.